Welcome to Tea Time with Chris, a podcast that celebrates faith, humor, and the power of storytelling. I'm Chris Tomlinson, your host, and I'm thrilled to invite you to join me for engaging conversations with people from all walks of life. Together, we'll sip some tea, or whatever you prefer, and explore life's joys and challenges with a focus on hope, inspiration, and positivity. I'll also share some of my personal stories and some poetry to add a touch of intimacy and creativity to our chats. So join me as we spread love, joy, and laughter with each episode. Welcome to Tea Time with Chris. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Tea Time with Chris. Like always, I am your host, Chris Tomlinson. And today's episode is I'm going to talk about my story. For those who are new to my podcast and don't know me, I figured I'd take this episode as another episode to explain more about who it is they're listening to. I know a lot of my viewers have seen my videos on YouTube and know me as such, but again, there's people that just listen to the podcast and don't know me. So I'm going to talk about my early life, like what happened with the accident and what I was like as a kid, what happened later on through, the healing process, the recovery, and everything that happened from there on growing up and into my adult life into now. I won't go into like a huge details about it. I want to keep this podcast to around 30 minutes and not go too long unless I'm interviewing somebody. My previous episode 2, is pretty long, and I apologize for that. But on this one, I'm going to hopefully keep to 30 minutes or so. So, with that being said, let's jump into it. All right, who's got their tea? You guys got your tea ready? I got mine. I usually only have like black tea or Earl Grey. Earl Grey is my favorite, so today I have some Earl Grey. If you are one of my followers who likes to look at my newsletters and such, you would see the section that says flavor tea of the month. Yeah. So this week's flavor tea of the month, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually pronounce it right, so bear with me because it's in I believe it's Chinese, but maybe it's not Chinese. But I mean, what I'm about to read is English, but the tea itself, hopefully I can say this right. Lapsang Suyang. Lapsang Suyang. I've never had this type of tea. I don't think I would like it either because, it is a black tea, which I do like black teas, but it has a unique smoky flavor, and I'm not really a fan of smoky flavored things. So, unless it's meat, like smoky flavored barbecue ribs, that's what I'm talking about. But other than that, I don't like my drinks to taste like it's barbecued. But maybe that's not what it tastes like. I don't know. Maybe I would have to try it. I am the type of person that I will try things at least once. And it does say that it's got a bold, robust taste with a smoky, piney aroma and a hint of sweetness. And it contains antioxidants and a moderate amount of caffeine, which may provide health benefits such as supporting heart health, improving mental alertness, and reducing the risk of certain chronic diseases. So that's Lapsang or Lapsang Suyang or Suchong. I apologize if I am pronouncing that wrong. I'm doing the best I can with it. So, anywho, that is in the newsletter that is released the same day as each episode podcast, Mondays. So there is some new exciting thing coming up that I put in the newsletter you guys could check out. I won't go over them in the podcast just for the sake of time and keeping this at 30 minutes and just diving into what we want. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about my story, and sometimes I don't like talking about it because I feel like I'm repeating myself and I'm like a broken record, and I don't want people to be listening to me and be like, "We've heard this already." Yeah, get it over with. Come on, and just get annoyed with hearing my story over and over again. And maybe that's just me. I talked to some people about that, and they were like, "Your story's good, and there's no way people would get annoyed with it." And they're like, "The reason why you get annoyed with it is because you say it. You have to talk about it a lot, and because it's your life. So every time I think about it, I'm so used to it. So to me, it's like, yeah." But anywho, so I was born in Braden, Florida, and I was a very curious kid. Very curious. I loved getting into things. Now, before I really dive into my story, I just want to let you guys know that I don't remember a lot of my past. From what I can barely remember, and it's very foggy and it's very, how do I like spotty. Like I don't remember. Like I get certain scenes, I guess you could say, in my head, and I don't remember them really. Like I don't like when they pop in my head. I'm not like, oh yeah. It's more like I pause for a second, like, well, wait a minute. Let me play this out so I can actually remember this. And then like I'll ask like my mom or somebody, and they're like, yeah, when you were a kid, blah blah blah, and then go on about it. And it's just weird because I can't remember the whole scene either. It's just bits and pieces of those times it happened. So a lot of what I'm gonna say was told to me, and from either my parents or friends or other family members or doctors and stuff like that. So I'm going to do the best I can to remember what I can remember and explain what people have told me. So again, I was a curious kid, and I was outside, and I was on like a toddler swing type thing. I was around 22 months old, which is almost 2 years old, a year and 2 months shy from being two. So I was outside on the swing, and I was swinging on it, and my mom was watching me, and she turned around for a split second, and literally, like, if you're a parent, you know that seconds, like milliseconds, microseconds, can seem like hours for kids because they can do and get into things so fast and way before you notice, and it's just like, whoa, 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 wait, what just happened? So, so when she turned around, I was out of her view, and she was looking for me. She had gone to like this garden section that she has that I used to go into and play around in. So she figured that's where I went to. So she went to go over there, and I wasn't there. And all of a sudden, she heard like a pop, like an explosion pop noise. So what was going on while she was trying to find me, which literally took seconds? I had gotten out of her view into a utility room. And if you don't know what a utility room is, it's basically like a room that's added onto their house, or some people may even have like a shed in their backyard that they call a utility room. But here in Florida, the one we had is like attached to the house. And it's where you keep like, like you a storage room pretty much. And you can keep like your outside stuff in there, like, your gardening tools, maybe lawnmower, whatever. The hot water heaters in there, and there's piping and all that stuff that's all in there. So I had gotten in there, and I had pulled down an empty gasoline can for like a lawnmower. And even though it was empty, there was still fumes and stuff in there. And knocking it down, opened it up, and the fumes came out. And I was close enough to the hot water heater that when it came on, the pilot light has a little flame that ignites. And that when that ignited, it caused the fumes in the room to ignite and burst into flames. And it covered my entire body. So when my mom heard that pop, that was what she heard, was those fumes and everything igniting. And she got to me right away, and unfortunately I was totally engulfed in flames, and she kept pulling me out, and all she could get was skin because it was so hot. So the flames were just bad on me. So every time she pulled, she was just pulling skin until finally she was able to grip hard enough. She pulled me out and got the fire out, and I don't know what all happened at this point. I wasn't told exactly, but from what I'm assuming, I guess what I would have done, I'd be yelling and panicking and like, oh my gosh. And from what I know, from what I've been told, is our neighbors called 911 or whatever, and they came. obviously as fast as they could to get me, and I was med flighted on a helicopter in a college parking lot across the street from where we lived, and they med flighted me to, I believe it was Tampa General Hospital. Now at this time, this was in June of 1986. This is the 80s. Technology, medicine was not like it is today, but they did what they could, and they told my family there was no way I was going to survive. They literally gave me a 1% chance to survive from the amount of burns that I had in my body. I had over 97% of my body covered in third-degree burns. Some areas were worse, down to the bone, and I was the youngest in 1986 to have undergone or have experienced such a traumatic event. So my family been given, the odds of me surviving. Absolutely no way, impossible. They prayed about it. They got it in the waiting room. They prayed. And there's one thing I'm really glad about my family is faith is a big thing, and always has been a big thing. And God has always been number one in my family. And they had such strong faith and put everything into God's hands. And you just prayed, it's God, it's your will, you'll survive. I don't know what they exactly prayed. I wasn't there, and no one's told me, but I'm just going off of what I'm assuming they could have said. So the next day comes, and miraculously, I'm still alive. So during this time, I'm unconscious though, but I'm alive. So what they had to do was they had to slice open my arms and my legs, and I don't know other parts of my body that they had to slice open because my body was so swollen that I was going to burst. They had to do skin grafts on my body to find they had to find areas of my body that were not burned, and this was so hard for them to do because most of my body was burned. So they would manage to find some skin from the top of my head or my thighs, my butt, my stomach, my lower abdomen type stomach, and they were able to take cells from those skins, and then they regrow new skin from those cells, which are you, and they put it onto your body that needs it. Okay, so I don't know all of what I went through. I don't remember it, and no one's really told me. What I do know is I was put into what they call a bubble, and a bubble is basically it looks like clear plastic, but it's not. I don't know what it's made of. I'm sure there's people out there who know, but I don't know. And it literally surrounds my bed, and it keeps all germs and everything out. And anybody that goes into the room had to wear all protection. My family couldn't go in, nothing. And from what I've been told, I was in the hospital for 8 months, unconscious and healing from all of these burns. Miraculously, I was able to go home. At 2 years old, when my entire body changed instantly. I no longer had 2 hands. I no longer had a full head of hair. I didn't have all my toes anymore, and I didn't know how to walk anymore. I now had to learn everything all over again. A child that had just learned how to walk, how to hold things and explore the world around him would now have to redo everything again. I don't know. I can't say I don't know what that's like because obviously I did it. I went through it. But I don't remember any of that. I don't. And my mom and dad used to tell me that when it first happened, my mom wanted to help me with everything. She wanted to get everything for me and, make sure that, that she was able to provide everything for me. And my dad told her you can't do that because he has to learn how to adapt to what he has, or he will never know how to do it. And I thank my dad to this day for him doing that because I know my mom meant good. I know my mom was just being mom, I'm glad my dad could be like, hey, we need to let him learn so he can adapt. So through all these years, from that age until I was 19, I had surgeries. And these surgeries would be from the skin graft. They'd also be plastic surgery where they'd have to reconstruct parts of my, whatever. I don't know. They'd have to reconstruct things and make things work. I do remember when they were working on my left hand. Now, my left hand has some fingers on it, so I'm able to, pick up things, hold things, write, type, do all the stuff. But I do remember, I don't remember the age though. I do remember though that my left hand, I couldn't move, like rotate it around the wrist up and down, move your whole wrist and the whole hand around. I couldn't do that. It was fused up. And my fingers were very limited on how they could move. And they were very, very, very small. So I do remember a surgery that they did. And what they had to do through a lot of these surgeries they had to do on me is they would have to break my bones and then put them into place of where they should be and reconstruct everything back. I do remember that surgery, like I said, and I remember pins being in each of my fingers. Now, what I have on my left hand is a thumb, my index finger, the middle finger, and then the two other fingers, like the pinky and what do you call that other finger? I don't know what the other finger is, but yeah, that finger there. Those two are conjoined. My pinky finger is very tiny, and the mystery finger is pretty much just joined to that, and it's hard for me to describe. You'd have to look at pictures to see. So, anyway, but I do remember the pins in each finger so that each one would heal internally separate. So the bones wouldn't fuse, the veins and everything wouldn't fuse and get all mixed up. And I thought it was weird because it felt weird with my hand being straight. It wasn't stuck upwards. So they had broken the wrist and everything and moved the hand back down and made it so I'd be able to move my hand around and do more. And I remember when they took the pins out, I remember waiting in the waiting room, and it wasn't like a regular, like you don't get admitted to the hospital and they do a surgery and remove the pins and everything. But you could do that. I remember sitting in the waiting room, and there was an older kid, and he was about to get some pins removed, and he was telling me that he was going to be put to sleep, and then they were going to remove the pins because he couldn't handle it. Now, I was the opposite of a lot of the kids that went to hospitals there to have surgeries. A lot of them wanted to be put to sleep, and that didn't bother them. That bothered me. The anesthesia was such a huge issue for me, so bad. Like, even to this day, I can remember. It's just traumatic. Like, I have PTSD from it because there's certain smells, there's certain sounds, there's certain tastes, certain feels that I got from anesthesias that I can associate with different things that happen randomly, and I'm like, ooh, I can't handle this. I gotta, oof. But I couldn't handle it because for some reason the anesthesia wouldn't put me right to sleep. It would take a while, and that during that time I was waiting to fall asleep, it felt so horrible, so gross. Like, everything got really loud, really loud. I could hear every little touch. Like, if people were walking, I could hear their footsteps, like, super clear. I could hear the hands rustling up against, like, the surface of something, or I could hear them breathing. I could hear their tongues click as they moved when they were talking. I could hear the metal clanging around because I wasn't asleep yet. They'd have to just start wheeling me into the operating room, and I would see everything and see, like, these bright lights and the sounds just echoing along with the amplified that I'm already hearing. So I got the amplified audio plus the echoes going. Then my whole body starts feeling cold and, like, just uncomfortable, like really vulnerable almost. And I just feel gross, and I feel nauseous, and I start feeling like as if everything around me is, like, moving, like as if I'm on a boat. And it's just a horrible feeling. I can't even, just talking about it, I'm having to close my eyes and just tell myself, chill. You're just explaining the situation. You're not going through it, Chris. But it was so bad. And to get back to what I was talking before, when I was in the waiting room and the kid was telling me that, I looked at him and was like, yeah, I'm just getting them taken out. And he was amazed because I was so much younger than him. Like I said, I don't remember my age, but I had to have been around between 5 and 10, or somewhere in there. And this was an older teenager that was like 16, 17 years old. So I remember going into one of the rooms, like the examination room, just a regular, like if you went to like a checkup to a doctor's office or whatever. and nurse is coming in, doctor coming in. Then I'm wrapping my hands and I'm looking at it and seeing these pins sticking out of my flesh. And I'm looking at it so amazed, just like, whoa. Like, it's weird, but at the same time, I'm just looking at it amazed because this is my first time seeing my hand straight and not stuck upwards in my fingers. Like, my fingers were longer. Well, not the pinky and the mystery finger, but the thumb and the index and middle finger were longer than what they were before they got wrapped up. And they were now all, like, those three were separated. The thumb, index, and middle were separated. I could move them individually. And I remember just looking at my hand, just being so happy and excited and just like, wow, like just amazed. So then they asked me, they're like, do you want us to give you anything to like calm down your nerves some or whatever as we pull these pins out? And I said, no, just pull them out. And I remember as they were pulling them out, and they had to pull them slowly. And none of it hurt. It didn't hurt at all. But it felt so weird, but cool at the same time. Because I could literally feel every inch as they were pulling it out, but it didn't hurt. It was weird. Some of it actually kind of tickled. And then when they got them out, I couldn't fully move my hand yet because everything was like stiff. If you know what it's like when you break bones or do something like have a bad injury, when they heal, it gets really stiff. So they wanted me to move them slowly, and I could barely move, and that was painful. That was a little painful moving around. But then over time, healed and wasn't painful and became more loose, and I was able to do more with my hands. And I had to go through a lot of those surgeries. Like I said, till I was 19. At 13, my mom told me she lost count of 200 surgeries. And I remember going in when I was around, it was almost 19. I remember going in they would have checkups on me, like, yearly. And they would have, maybe, every few months or a certain amount of months, they would have a checkup on me just to see how, I'm functioning, how my body's doing, how I'm feeling, how everything's going. And I remember going in, and they're like, all right, we have you scheduled for such and such date for, I don't remember what the surgery was, but it was something they were going to do. And they said, and this was the first time I've ever gone without my mom. Every visit, my mom would go. My dad was always working, not all day working, but he was working, from the mornings, and then he'd be home when I came home from school or something like that. But he was never available much to go to the checkups. I remember some he could, but not all of them. But I remember this was my first time going by myself, and I remember them looking at me and saying, but you are 18 now, and it is up to you. Do you want to keep going for surgeries? And they would have to stop at 21 no matter what. Even if I said, oh, I want this done, they couldn't do it anymore because that hospital in Massachusetts, which I skipped that part, I will explain that part in a minute. Shriners Burns in Boston, Massachusetts, all the treatment is free. All of it's free. But it's only covered until you're 21. Once you become that type of adult, you would have to go to other hospitals, and unfortunately it would cost money, or if your insurance covered it, it's covered. So I remember sitting there thinking, and I looked at them and I said, no, I'm done. And they said, okay, I don't blame you. Like, these are people, doctors and nurses, that knew me from when I was a baby. And here I am at almost 19 years old. And they've seen me through all of those over 200 surgeries, everything I went through. And all of them literally looked like they had a sigh of relief almost. Like they smiled, and they looked at me like, we do not blame you, Chris. We understand. No more surgeries for you. And I didn't have any more surgeries since then. I mean, I've had surgeries of other things. I've broken my legs and stuff as an adult, car accidents and stuff. I had to have surgeries, and it was such a weird, different experience to when I was a kid. But that's what it was like growing up. Every year from the age of almost 2 till I was almost 19, I would have when I was younger, when it first happened, I can't even tell you how far apart surgeries were because they were so close together because they had so much they had to do. But from what I can remember, from when everything was healed, and it was just getting to the point where, now we just have to make sure that he had the ability to use his hands and walk and turn his neck and bend his arms and all that stuff. and stretch my skin as I grew. Where was I going with that? Oh, every year, from what I can remember, I can just about remember fifth grade. I don't remember much before fifth grade, but from fifth grade on, I remember having about 2 to 3 surgeries a year. I would miss a lot of school. I'd miss out a lot of childhood things. A lot of my summer times and stuff were in the hospital. But when I look back on them now as an adult, I can say those were hard times, and yeah, maybe it didn't seem fair, but if I didn't have all that done, I wouldn't be able to do any of the stuff I could do today. And I can literally do everything that everybody can do. It might look a little different, but I can do what everybody can do. So that's what happened throughout my life to do with my accident, to the fire. So the most recent stuff, or not really recent, so just to cap in from that to now as a real quick just summary, because we're closing in on 30 minutes. Like I said, I had a lot of surgeries. I missed a lot of school. I went to a private school later on in high school, and they didn't have tutoring, which is weird because you would think a private school would have all these things you need, but we won't get into that. And I had to repeat 11th grade because I missed so much school. I had so much stuff to make up. I couldn't catch up. So eventually I had to drop out because I just could not get through it. And I went to a college and I took GED courses. I took courses first. So, they teach you, update you on math, science, language arts, all that stuff. And then you take the GED. And if you pass it, you get, a diploma. And I passed it. I think I was like, can't remember the exact number, but I know I was like the top. I was within the top 10 of one of the highest scores of the group that went. I got my GED. And during that time, I had met a girl and we were friends for a little bit. And we started dating. And after a year, I proposed to her. We got married. We had 2 kids, Nevaeh and Trinity. My whole life, my entire life, from since I was a kid until I stopped going to the hospitals, they told me I would never have kids because they figured that the internal trauma, the mental, just the trauma done to my body, and experimental medicines they had to use on me would, keep me from having kids. Like, I don't have damage down there. Like, that's not to be TMI, but that's all. Everything works. Everything looks fine. Anyways, get off of that. Sorry about that. And so they just assumed that, I wouldn't have kids, and God had other plans and gave me my 2 beautiful daughters. 2 beautiful, amazing daughters, my helpers. God knew. God knew what was going to happen. And, we went through things through marriage and life that, ups and downs. There was a time we were homeless and we had to live in a shelter, and we got into our own place, and it wasn't a good place after that. Like, it was a really bad neighborhood, shootings, drugs, death. Like, it was just bad. I felt so bad for my kids, but we had nowhere else to go. So after about 14 years of being married, my ex-wife decided to cheat on me with a friend, and that destroyed me. And I won't go into all that, and I won't bash her either because I don't want to. I don't want to make her look bad. What happened in the past happened in the past. We move on. I forgive her, and it's done and over with. I'm not saying what she did was right, and I'm not saying that what she did didn't cause a lot of trauma and destroyed a lot of things within me. My trust in people was gone. My self-esteem is totally gone. But those are things that I've been working on. I'm working on within myself. My self-esteem isn't as bad as it was when it all first happened. And I was very negative. Oh man, was I negative, guys? Everything in my life I hated. I was so depressed, so negative. I could not see any positivity whatsoever in my life until one day I just looked at my kids, and inside something just clicked, and I felt like God was like, you need to stop. You wanted to be a father. You're a father. You have 2 little kids who are depending on you for everything, and I have given them to you. I've blessed them to you. Do it. And I did it. I got up and I was like, enough is enough. Time to be a dad. Time to be here for my kids. Time to give them a life they deserve. Yes, I don't have her no more, but you know what? I got God and these 2 strong, amazing kids. I got family that want help. I got friends that want to help. And it took a while to let family and friends help because I didn't want nobody's help because I thought I was a failure and I didn't want people's help because I figured, if they're helping me, that means I can't do it. I had to get over a lot of things, guys. I had to get over pride, pain, trauma, and just anger. So many things I had to get through. And I look back today and I can just smile and shake my head now because, man, I'm so much better now. I'm so much better than I was. I was so dark. I was stuck in a hole, and depression got a hold of me, and God pulled me out. And I did not want to admit to God doing it, and I did not want God to do it. I wanted to stay sad. I wanted to just end it all. God had other plans. My 2 baby girls, and there was more to my life. Yes, big time, my daughters. But God was like, you have something to tell people. You have a story. You need to show people that you still have hope, that you still have joy, you still can laugh about things. You can still bring fun into things in the life. And even though you're going through something, you're still going. You're still going. We have an inner strength that a lot of us don't realize when we're stuck in these dark moments because our minds don't want to see that. It blocks it out. Our mind is so focused on the negativity that it blinds and blocks your mind to know that, hey, you got this inner strength in you that you're so much stronger than so much stronger. And that's something I want people to get from my podcast. I want them to find that inner strength. For me, it's a combination of my inner strength and God, and I want people to know God through me. I want them to know who He is and that He still performs miracles. But again, I'm not here to force this down anybody's throat either. So if it's something that you just have to sit down, and I had to do this too, sit down and look at the things that are going on in your life that are good, not bad, good. Because I know it sounds corny, and I know at the same time, if you're going through something bad right now, you're probably like, dude, I've heard this before, just shut up. Like, no, it's not true. Everything going on right now is bad. And I get that. I totally get that. Because I was the exact same way. But here we go. I'm going to tell you something. If you sit down and just think for a minute. Number one. This is number one for me. When I woke up in the morning. I woke up. You woke up. You know how many people are out there in the world right now? This is their last second. Their last breath they just breathe. They will never be able to see a sunrise again. They will never be able to hear birds sing. They will never know what it's like to live on from that time that they let out their last breath. That was something I had to tell myself and remind myself that yes, what I was going through, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to admit to yourself that what you're going through is horrible. It's horrible. It's not fair. But at the same time, take a minute. Breathe, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and think. Right now, there's people going through cancer who can barely even stay awake and in so much pain. There's people right now who are standing before their loved one's casket. There's people right now who are sitting in a waiting room and a doctor has come in and told them horrible news. There's stuff going on with everybody all the time. And we have to remind ourselves that yes, what we're going through is horrible, but things can always be worse, always be worse. And I know that might not sound like good advice because you're like, Chris, you just were going to tell us to get positivity in life. And you just told us something really depressing to think about. And I get that, I know. But that's something that I had to do with myself, is to tell myself, yes, it's horrible, but it could be so much worse. So let's get through this. Number two, my kids. My kids were there. I could just hearing them talk, just hearing them laugh, just hearing their footsteps, just hearing them breathe, just seeing them reminded me that there's another purpose in my life and another reason I'm alive. And for me not to just think about myself and dwell on myself. Those 2 girls had no mother no more. They were hurting too. They needed me. They needed their dad to be there for them and show them that the world has not fallen apart. that everything was going to be okay. And that took me a while to do. Thankfully, I did it though. And then number 3 thing for me was just for me. This is me. For you guys, if you don't have the same interest in me, that's fine. But if it's find something that you really enjoy, whether it's music, nature, whatever, something good for you though. And for me, it was sitting outside and just looking at the way nature worked and knowing that what I was going through may seem out of control, may seem like chaos, but the world, maybe not humans, but everything else was stable, was going as it should. And for me, that was comforting because it showed that someone was in control. Someone was still right there, and that was God for me. God, I looked out over nature and watched the birds fly and play and watched animals in the fields and just the trees and the plants. And it just made me think that all these things God created, He's going to take care of me too. And everything is going to be okay. And yes, what I'm going through is horrible, but I will get through it. And thankfully, I did. I relied on God so much, and my kids too. My kids have had to grow up so fast. I feel so bad for them, but I've given them a life and still giving them a life as good as I can. I try so hard to just give them a good life. And so far, our house is filled with laughter and fun and joy all the time. And they tell me all the time that I'm such a good, fun dad. And I'm always there for them. And they know that they're loved. And that brings me so much joy to know that they feel that way. And yeah, they're kids. They're going to act up. There's going to be days, times that I'm going to get upset or annoyed because they're kids. And, it's just me and them. It's just us that we're getting through life together. And God, knowing that God is right there above it all and He's in control of it all, it's so comforting to me. And I like that when I'm going through something, I can pray to God and know that He's got my back. And I can look back on my life and look at the things I went through and tell myself, Chris, you've gone through worse. You can do this. Or even if it's something. For me, when my ex-wife cheated and left, for me, that was worse than the fire. And maybe that's because I don't remember the fire. But even when I say the fire, I even think of all the surgeries, all the pain, all the times that bandages were ripped off of me and my flesh was ripped and just everything, just all the pain, all of that is all combined into the fire for me. And I'd rather feel that pain than the pain I felt when she left. But even though that was, to me, worse than what I had gone through, I could look back in my life and say, Chris, God has got your back. Don't worry, dude. We got this. With Him, we got this. And man, I can't even, we'd be talking forever if I was to tell you everything that God has had my back for. And I kick myself sometimes and feel so bad sometimes. Sometimes I'll slip up and just be like, dude, why do you have my back still? Like, why? Aren't you annoyed by now? Like, haven't you had enough of me yet, dude? Like, and every time, God's just like, nah, I got you, bud. I got your back. He always does. So, there's more I could explain about my life. Like, a lot more details that I skipped over just to keep this relatively in the time frame I want. It's over the time frame I wanted. But if you subtract the music, like, the mid-break and the intro and the outro, I'm hoping it's roughly around the time I wanted. So hopefully this helps you guys understand more about my story of what I've gone through. If you want to see a little bit more of what I was like as a kid and what I had to go through, the surgeries and stuff, on my YouTube channel. And if you don't know my YouTube channel, you could just go to YouTube and type this in. It's literally the first video that pops up. Type in The Boy Behind the Scars. Again, that's The Boy Behind the Scars. And that was a documentary that was made on me when I was about 5 years old. And you can see how I was as a kid and see the things I had to go through and just understand better if you want to watch it. It's about like 35, 40 minutes long, I think. Probably shorter than this podcast. But yeah, if you're interested, I also have on Special Books by Special Kids, SBSK, That's another YouTube channel. I'll give a shout out to Chris of SBSK. Thank you, Chris, for all your support, all your help, everybody who's part of Special Books by Special Kids, all the contributors, all the supporters, the watchers, the viewers, whatever you want to call them, the audience, just the community that SBSK has built is such a beautiful community. And the outreach that Chris is doing from that it's all I gotta say is just bless Chris and God bless that SBSK, because they have done so much for me and my kids. And he did an interview with me, and it's kind of like an updated version of my documentary. Like, you see me as a kid going through all this stuff in that documentary, and then if you look up this interview on Special Books by Special Kids, it's me as an adult with my kids. And they actually interviewed my kids and my mom too, so you can see me from when I was a kid to then. And now I got the podcast, and it's because of them, the supporters of SBSK and of the viewers and the audience of that interview, who had told me how I should get into doing podcasts and how my voice sounds. Because of you guys that I'm doing this, the encouragement from all that helped, because I was so scared to do this, because I don't like the way my voice sounds. So I always just assumed that my voice was just weird and that nobody would want to hear anything I say. So thank you to Chris and Special Book for Special Kids, SBSK. Look that up, please. Go support them, subscribe to them, follow them. You can also go to my YouTube channel, like I said. It's Chris Tomlinson Live, or just Chris Tomlinson. Hopefully you can find it. If you're listening to the podcast through my YouTube, obviously you're already on my channel. I do have a link to it on my website, www.ttimewchris.com. In the upper right corner, you'll see the YouTube logo. If you click that, it'll take you to my YouTube channel, and just subscribe to that, and you can watch some videos there. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode 3 of this Tea Time with Chris podcast. Again, thank you guys for listening. Please, if you guys could do me a favor and make sure you listen to these podcasts on like Apple or Spotify or something like that, and subscribe and rate them. The more rates and reviews I get, and the more subscriptions I get on those, the more they will give this as a suggestion to other people to listen to. It'll bump my podcast up for people to check out. It'll get my podcast out there more if you guys could help with reviewing them and rating them and subscribing to them on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I'm literally on every streaming thing you can think of. I'm on there. Pandora, Slacker, iHeartRadio. My podcast is on there, and it's automatically updated with a new episode every time I release one. So please, you guys do that for me. That'd be awesome if you guys did. So again, thank you for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Tea Time with Chris. God bless. You have just listened to Tea Time with Chris, a podcast filled with hope, faith, joy, love, and occasional laughter. We hope you enjoyed it, and continue to stay up to date with us at ttimewchris.com. God bless.